I don't know how to think. I don't know what to feel. All I know is that you are here and I am real. We are so very different. We are one of a kind. I am your love and you are mine. Oh, this life is getting harder and no one's feet are on the ground. But things just seem to be easier when you're around. Hey, you. I'm Dallas Ann, creator of the Violet Pie, and you're listening to Knitting Myself Together. This is our space where you and I can get together bi-weekly and we can talk about life and what's going on and how we're coping and handling things and knitting and how that all intersects together. This season's driving theme is knitting ennui. What that is, what that looks like, how that manifests in my life, and how that might differ in yours, and how we just shake it off. It's very nuanced and complicated sometimes, and other times it's very straightforward. And I'm here to talk about that with you, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Something that has been helping me beat back these terrible, depressive ennui clouds in my mind because, oh my gosh, it's the first week of March and it snowed. It snowed. It's terrible. I live in a place where the air hurts my face and anyways... What has really helped me cope with all of this is the fog along knit along that has started. I am loving everybody's enthusiasm and excitement and their amazing whip pictures that they're sharing. The colors, holy crap, they are spectacular. If you haven't joined in yet, it's not too late. I promise. Stash Dive. Post some pictures of color combinations. We will help you figure it out. Even if you have to order yarn, you still have plenty of time. This is going through the end of April, and seriously, your shawl is only as big as you want it to be. I have seen some lovely finished project pages on Ravelry of simple shawlettes. I have seen others that are basically publicly acceptable blankets to wear to the grocery store and not feel like a crazy person for your choices that you have made. At least when it comes to knitting. I can't make any promises that the fog shawl will justify any other life choices you have made. But that's neither here nor there. Seriously, join in. It would be amazing to have you. And also, tied into all of that, I went down to Alabama last weekend to visit some friends, and I stopped in at the local yarn store there, Fiber Artworks. And would you believe it? But spontaneous community sprung up around me while I was in that store. It was, I don't even know what to say. It was incredible. The store owner recognized me for my patterns, not because I had been in before, but because she had seen my work and seen my face. And Nina, the owner, was so incredible. She asked me to come back and do a Facebook Live video with her. I'd never done anything like that before, and so we did an unboxing of her latest yarn shipment, and I will put a link to that in show notes. It was so much fun. And those ladies that were at the store were so kind. And the conversation was lovely. And we got to talk about all sorts of things. I really need more of that, more of this in-person community in addition to complement this online experience. It was fabulous. And also, Nina very generously offered up 2 more gifts for knit-along prizes. She offered Yoth yarn. I'm a little beside myself about it. So excited. That stuff, I just want to keep it for my stash, but I'm being good, and you can head over to Ravelry and see pictures of it. It's spectacular. And the way you win it is by just finishing your shawl and getting pictures up by the end of April. That's it. And again, it can be a shawlette or a blanket or anything in between. As long as you bind off and have pictures by the end of April, you're good. So I cannot encourage you enough. Join my community. Be a part of it. It would be so lovely to have you. Along that vein of community and the fiber world, Knit Circus is fast becoming a favorite collaborator of mine. From the moment I met Jala at Stitches Midwest last year, I was just struck by her being basically the embodiment of kindness and generosity, just standing there in front of me. She has been so incredibly lovely to work with. They provided the yarn for my color shot pattern. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy with my experience with her that I can hardly speak. Anyways, I reached out to Jala and asked her if she would be willing to give us a voicemail describing how she shakes ennui and what inspires her colorway names, because I gotta tell you, I have been enamored with her name choices. And I thought this would be the perfect episode to incorporate that all into. So here's Jala to share with you a little bit about her inspiration.
Hey, my name is Jala Spyro, and I'm the dyer behind Knit Circus Yarns. And I love yarn and color so much. It's hard to get any ennui when there's so many colors around. We specialize in self-striping yarns, so long striping gradients, short striping gradients, impressionist gradients, which have little spots and speckles throughout and change kind of from one color to the next as you knit. And we also have added speckle skeins and semi-solids as well this year. So there's pretty much no end to inspiration for me. I get the color inspiration from a lot of different things. I mean, I'll browse Pinterest before I go to sleep and just see what catches my eye, and I colors and I look at it again. Sometimes I'm inspired by actual things that I see, like when we were visiting the mountains in Colorado and woke up to this incredible sunrise. Like, how is that not inspiring? Sometimes it can just be random things, like right now I'm looking at a knitting bag next to a knitting project and some Post-its, and like that happens to look pretty cool as far as colorways go. Sometimes I just throw my favorite colors together and see what happens. And sometimes it's more or less successful. Sometimes I make a concerted effort to use colors that aren't my favorite and see how they look, and sometimes they're surprisingly awesome. Wild Rumpus, which is a impressionist that we created recently, was colors that we called Swampy, and they ended up being like one of my favorite combinations. We have a lot of fun naming our yarns, and the rule is before it goes out the door, it has to make us either smile or laugh. So it can either be from the inspiration that originally got us to make the color, or it can be that once it's done, it reminds us of something. A lot of things we pull from our favorite books, songs, and movies. So, As You Wish, we have an Inconceivable. We have an Anna Green Gables inspired yarn. Wild Rumpus, of course, is from the wonderful children's book Memories Sendak. So it really can be anything. Like the semi-solid we made today was called Shrubbery with an exclamation point because it reminded us of the nights you say me. So we had a lot of fun with the color names. Anything else? I think that's about it. Thanks for letting me contribute to this.
Thank you so much, Jala, for sharing that with us. For me, personal inspiration comes from situations, whether they're highly charged emotional situations, positive or negative, or physical. It's life that inspires me in my designs and in my knitting and color choices. I always have understood how that can produce more traditional art, paintings, photography, sculptures, or how it could inspire authors and poets and songwriters, musicians. But it never occurred to me that that's where my knitting inspiration springs from. And it wasn't until I was preparing for this episode that it all sort of coalesced and clicked into place for me that I need to be experiencing life in order to produce designs. One example that comes to mind is my fog shawl. That's the one that we're doing for the knit along. What inspired that was a situation. I was on a vacation with a friend and I developed a horrifying migraine. It was terrible. The whole point of this vacation was to get a hotel that was too far away to be easily accessible by everybody else in our life. If there truly was an emergency, we would be able to get home in a timely manner. But it's not like we could just pop home and cook dinner for people. You know what I mean? Anyways, we were going to lay in bed in the hotel room and knit and watch hockey playoffs. Now, don't mistake me for a sports ball person, because I'm not. What I am a fan of are those hockey playoff beards. So, my friend, who's a hockey person, is watching for the sport. I am just simply watching for the aesthetics. Anyways, I developed this terrible, terrible migraine, and I was really depressed and angry about it because I just wanted to enjoy my guilt-free knitting time, and I could not work on this intricate lace shawl that I had brought with me. So I pulled out the yarn that I had picked up at the local yarn store we had visited and just started knitting a basic triangle shawl. And I discovered that at the end of it, I had produced a very wearable, easy on the mind project that I could do while I had a migraine. That physically painful, emotionally depressing situation ended up inspiring the very first pattern I ever wrote, which was the fog shawl. And something else that I've discovered is that I get a lot of joy out of sharing things with people, bringing them into my excitement, because excitement is great on my own. But if I get somebody else to be excited with me, that is all the better. And so I love birthdays. I love your birthday. I love my birthday. Birthdays are just amazing, and they're great, and they're fabulous. And you know what? If it can't be my birthday, it might as well be yours. And I have decided, I've committed to releasing a free shawl pattern every year on my birthday for you, because it's my birthday and I want people to be excited. Damn it. So that's what I do. And this year's birthday shawl is coming out on May 7th, and it is quite actually inspired by birthday parties. And I am over the moon excited about it, and I cannot wait to share it with you and show it to you. It's going to be amazing. And so that positive emotion and that excitement and the physical happening, my birthday, those all are wrapped up into the inspiration and where I pull from for those future and upcoming designs. And so something else I've discovered in this whole inspiration exploration is that people influence my designs as well. With some people, I just absorb their energy and their mood, and it's really hard sometimes to differentiate between what I've taken on from them versus what I am actually experiencing, whether it's positive or negative. I've also discovered that when I'm designing, I'm actually terribly emotionally vulnerable. It's like all my guard goes down and I'm very raw and present and there. And so I really need to make sure I'm around people who help me just breathe easier. I need to be around people when I'm designing who make things better when they're around. It's that, or I've got to be completely alone. I can't be just with somebody who sort of sucks that out of me, or around noisy strangers that make me feel a little edgy and nervous. I've got to be around my people. I was around my people when I designed GeoPoint, the hat that came out in January in Amirasu. Some of my best work has come out of being around my people, and it's been a really interesting experience figuring out who I can design around and where I can be to do it if I don't have anybody with me, and the people and the places that are like death traps to inspiration. And it's now that I'm more cognizant and aware of it, I'm much better at making choices as to where I do my designing. One of those people who makes things better when they're around is my friend Julie. Now, I've never actually been able to spend time with her in real life. We are on a strictly internet relationship basis, but I don't feel like, at least for me, that diminishes the quality or the vibrancy of our friendship. She is an incredible person, and I am so thrilled to be a part of her life in the small sliver and capacity that I am. I reached out and asked her if she would be willing to share with me about her knitting process and her ennui. I love her knitting and I love her work. She's test knit for me before, and it's just her work is just beautiful. And she's always so conscious and deliberate about the choices that she makes. I really wanted to know her process myself because we had never explicitly talked about it. And I loved what she had to say. And I hope you do too.
Hi, Gala fans. This is Julie. I go by RL Julie on Ravelry and Instagram, and I'm really thrilled to be part of your online knitting community. I've been thinking about your question of what inspires me to shake knitting ennui. And I have a really short attention span, so what inspires me changes all the time. There's no one thing. Thinking about specific times that I've fallen out of love with my knitting and then reconnected, I have to say that trends are actually really useful to keep me energized. Sometimes it's one of those trendy patterns like the Hito Fude shrug a few years ago, or the featherweight cardigan, and sometimes it's a new book of patterns. Anything that sweeps Ravelry and social media, it's a good way for me to find new designers or difficult or different constructions or techniques, things that are hard that then I can kind of challenge myself with. And I saw that happen this year in a really big way with brioche knitting. There were all these designers like Nancy Marchand and Stephen West and others just burning up the web with gorgeous pictures of brioche stitch patterns, and that made me say, hey, I want to try that. And so I did, and it was hard, and that new challenge became something to conquer. So I made a couple of projects, a scarf and a hat and a half of a couple more projects that I didn't even finish, but it was enough to keep me, each step of learning was something that kept me moving forward. But also, when I think about community, sometimes my shaking ennui becomes more personal, and I have to credit you, Dallas Ann, for one inspiration and a relief from ennui that came about last spring from test knitting your boardwalk sweater. Not only was it the challenge of a fun pattern, but also just participating in the test when I knew others were working too, and you were relying on our feedback, and I wanted to be useful. So I wanted to make sure the math was right for other knitters. I wanted to make sure I didn't hold up the process. I wanted to make something worthy of your pattern, and that sense of being linked to a larger community of test knitters, even though they were complete strangers, that kept me moving forward, and it was really rewarding. But now I'm knitting a new project that's just tons and tons of stockinette in the round, and turns out that's just what I need at the moment. It's a pattern I've had pinned from a Pinterest board for years and years, but it has a silky yarn with a lot of drape and nothing else going on, and sometimes just a boring knit is what I need. So, yeah, what inspires me changes from season to season, but definitely the online community of knitters plays a huge role in inspiration. So, thanks for being part of my community and keeping me inspired.
Oh, isn't she just delightful? I love Julie so much. For me, when inspiration strikes, I try really, really hard to hold off on actually knitting the thing. Because if I stopped what I was doing and started knitting everything the moment inspiration struck, my house would be full of more works in progress than it already is, and there would be nothing finished for you to knit. And so I try just pushing it out, finding the appropriate season and month in my future scheduling, and just cross my fingers that my extensive notes will be enough to trigger memory when I get to the point where I want to start swatching for it. But sometimes inspiration strikes hard and fast, and there's nothing I can do except hold on and hope for the best. The most recent happening of that was for my Odetta mitts. Those came out last year in November. They are the companion piece to my Etta cardigan. And I woke up in the middle of the night with the idea for these fingering weight mitts that featured the same stitch pattern as the Etta cardigan, and there was no letting go of it. So I called Susan the next morning, and she went to her local yarn store, picked up yarn for me, and basically shipped it overnight because there was no place online that had what I needed that could also get it to me in a timely fashion. And I got that on a Friday, and the mitts were done by Sunday, and a pattern written by the end of that week, and then to test knitters, and it just all happened so fast, and it was really stressful, and it reminded me why I stick to my long push-out schedule. It feels really crazy to say this, but I've got designs planned from now all the way through this time in 2019. That's a little weird and surreal, at least for me. I know that's how most designers actually work, but believing in myself that I have that sort of concept and idea back catalog to just pull out and do is still really exciting for me. And it is so hard to stick to that, because when Susan and I have our weekly meetings and I just throw ideas out at her and she takes notes in Google Docs, I get so excited about these new designs that I want to put on your needles ASAP. I want to just do it right the fuck now, please and thank you. But I can't, because I've got all these other things that are waiting in the wings to be finished. And so I have to put a cap on my enthusiasm and try and stick to my schedule. So that's a bit of a deeper dive into how I view inspiration, what inspires me, what keeps me going. What about you? We heard from Julie and we heard from Jala. I would love to hear from you. Do you want to drop me an email or comment on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you see the post about this podcast and just share with me what inspires you in the knitting world or in life in general? You can find me at The Violet Pie on all social media. You can email me at thevioletpie@gmail.com. Also, there is more over at patreon.com. At every level of support, even $1 a month, you, as my patron, get access to these documents that we've put together called Behind the Designs. And so during the podcast hiatus, we release bi-weekly images or mood boards or, the word is escaping me, but it's this page of tidbits and look behind the curtain, so to speak, as inspiration for very specific designs and things I learned, and a whole host of little ideas and pieces of trivia. So if that interests you and you have $1 a month to spare, consider supporting me, the podcast, the knitting, all of that over at patreon.com. Today, instead of playing you out with my standard outro music, I am going to share with you a piece of music that's called When You're Around. It's by Good and Strange, and you can find them on SoundCloud. Their link will be in show notes. It's the song for the lyrics that I shared at the beginning, and hopefully this will all make a little more sense now that you've listened to the podcast in the entirety. So, until next time, you keep that yarn moving.
For you to stand on top of, for you to put your feet upon, for you to stand on. I know that life is getting harder. the things